So in chapter 4, at least for 3 of the sections, we're going to have the need to graph data. And we're going to use our calculator to graph the data and not do any graphing by hand because it's a nuisance to do what we have to do. And this is the beginning. Problem 16 gives me some information. It gives me some points that are x's in the x left column, y's in the right column. It asks me to create a scatter plot of the data. So I'm going to do this on my calculator. The graph that I have on the screen right here is a scatter plot. It's just taking the data, plotting the points, and we call this a scatter plot when you just plot the points without any line or any curve connecting the points. How do I do that? Snag this from the TI website. So how are we going to enter this data on our calculator to make this scatter plot? It's an important skill for this section, so let's get it down. So in order to make a scatter plot of data, first thing I want to do, let me clear out anything that's in here. First thing I want to do is hit my stat button, so press stat. This is available under the chapter 4 problem, so you can pull this sheet up if you need, and then hit enter. So I entered the stat editor, and now I'm just going to hit enter. And hopefully when I hit enter, I see a list 1 and list 2. On both of my calculators, I think this is going to happen if I just hit stat and enter. I'm going to see a list 1 and list 2. I've been writing keys for the problems here. My lists have junk in them. I need to clear these out. In order to clear my list out, I arrow up to the top of whatever list I'm trying to clear. I don't hit the delete key, I hit the clear key, followed by enter. So I'm going to hit clear. You probably won't be having to do this. Hit clear and enter with my cursor at the very top of a particular list. L means list. Similarly, clear and then enter. Go over to my next list, clear button, and then enter. Go over to the top of my list, clear, and hit enter. If you delete the list, it needs to be reinserted. I'll have to teach you that individually. So now that I have my table that I want to enter, let me enter the table. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in list 1. Oh, idiot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in list 1, using the little arrows like a mouse. In list 2, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, and 18. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, and 18. That's step 1. I have my data entered. So I hit my stat button, followed by enter when the edit feature is highlighted. Brings me to it. I should be able to find my lists. If you didn't see them, you can arrow around and maybe you'll find the lists by just arrowing. Eventually you might run across list 1 and list 2. If not, send me an email. I'll explain to you how to insert the list. So done with the first step. Now I've done all my entering here. Now I want to plot the data. And how do I plot the data? Well, you'd think I have something on here. Yes, I do. So plotting a scatter plot. How to plot a scatter plot. Go to your y equals button. So go to your y equals key. Well, I'm sorry, I don't even need to do that. I can just do exactly this. Hit second and stat plot. This is the y equals key. So to make a graph here, I hit my second button and then my y equals key. My second button and then my y equals key. And so at this point, you can see if the plots are on or off. All of my plots are off. We just need to get one of the plots on. So all of the plots should be off except the one that I'm working with. I'm only ever going to work with the first plot. What do I do to get it turned on? I'm going to hit enter when my cursor is on number 1. It's the only plot I'm ever going to work with. Look at this, number 5 says plots on. I better shut this guy off. Oh, no. I don't even know what that is. Second stat plot. I don't know what that 5 plots on as I don't see it on my old calculator. It doesn't matter. So I have this highlighted. I'm going to hit enter and hit enter. And right, see how my cursor is flashing on the on? I'm just going to hit enter to get the on so it's dark and not flashing. Hit enter when the cursor is flashing on the on. It makes it dark and flashing. The rest of your calculator should be set up like this. The type I want is just these points. The X's for my points were in list 1. Let's just say that it wasn't written in list 1 and I wanted my X's to stay list 1, that yours didn't default to it. All you would do is go to the X list. You would hit the second button, which is the blue button, and list 1 is on the 1 key. And in blue above the 1 is list 1. You hit second and then 1. It's going to make it list 1. Everything else here I feel good about. This is a color calculator. It has more options, but stat plot is on. It's going to do a scatter plot. The X's are on list 1. The Y's are on list 2. I'm going to make a dot, and this color is in blue. There's no color on this calculator. Done with that step. And now we need the graph. If I just hit the graph button right now, there's a better chance than not I'm not going to see my stat plot. The safest thing to do if you want to see your data is to hit your zoom button and go down to the option that says zoom stat. Zoom stat is going to change the window to fit the data you're asking it to graph. So zoom button, go down to zoom stat and just hit enter. And just hit enter. That's it. It's graphed the data perfectly for me. This is an important skill. To be able to enter data and make a scatter plot is important. Really, the entering the data is more important than doing the scatter plot, as we'll find out as we go through the chapter. This is available. I don't know how good this is or isn't, but it's what Texas Instruments prepared. And I snuck it off their website. This is available under the Chapter 4 problems if you need this handout. So now that I have my data scatter plotted, I want to determine whether the data is linear or nonlinear. Data is perfectly linear if I'm able to draw a line and it goes through the points perfectly. I don't know if this is going to show up here so well, but if you look at the points that I drew, if I drew a line through those points, it goes perfectly through those points. That means this data is absolutely linear. If I draw a line and it doesn't go through the points perfectly, then the data isn't exactly linear. It could be approximately linear, but for this particular section, if a line connects each point, then it's linear. If I try to connect the points with a line and there's points off the line, then it's not linear. So you don't have to do any scatter plots by hand. You can just say C calculator. I don't really need to have you graphing this. It's just almost a waste of time to graph. And on my calculator, I still should be able to tell whether the data is linear or not by just kind of seeing if I could connect the data with a, God, it gets to be impossible to see, but to see if I can, if the data all lies on a perfect line, which it does again here. Data is perfectly linear. So is the data linear or nonlinear? Yes, this data is linear. Then it says if the function is linear, determine the equation of the line that fits find the equation of the line. Because all the points are on the line, it doesn't matter which points I'm going to do in part C to find the equation of my line. I'm going to pick 2 points. At any 2 points on the line are fine. Here I have 6 points, but the first 2 are going to be adequate. And in order to find an equation for a line, first you need to find the slope. So I picked 2 points on the line. Any 2 points were fine. And I'm going to find the slope by subtracting the x's in the denominator and the y's in the numerator. And then we did a bunch of lines in the last chapter. I like using the y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1 strategy to get my equation. But you're welcome to do the opposite strategy. And for me, for my y1, I'm going to plug 2, the y coordinate of the first point, And for my x1, I'm going to plug 1, the x coordinate of the first point that I picked. And then for m, I'm going to plug 4. And I'm going to go y minus 2 equals to 4 times x minus 1. I'm going to clear my parentheses, go 4 times x and 4 times minus 1, and then add 2 to both sides. The answer to part C of number 16 is going to be y equals to 4x minus 2. Let's do another scatter plot. I'll plot number 18. So let's go through the steps again. So for 18, for 18, if I want to do a scatter plot, I hit my stat button. After I hit my stat button, I have the cursor right where it needs to be. I hit enter. So it's stat first, enter second. I need to clear my list, so I go up to the top of the list, hit the clear button, followed by the enter key. Get to my next list, hit the clear button, followed by the enter key, clear, and enter. And now I'm going to enter in my x's, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and in my y's, 1, 8, 27, and 64. I don't need to turn on my stat plot. It's already on, so that business of turning on the stat plot, you just have to do it one time while you're graphing, and we'll turn it off at the end of this video. But now I'm just going to hit zoom, go down to the option that says stat, and hit enter. Done with part A. Again, I'm just going to say C calculator. I don't want you to graph one of these by hand. Seems like it's not particularly hard to plot points. Now part B, is this data linear? Means, can I draw a line? You know, if I draw a line to connect any 2 points, does it go through all the points? And it's easier to see on this. If I drew a line that went through those 2 points, it doesn't go through the rest of the points. It's not linear. In order for it to be perfectly linear, any line that I draw that connects 2 points would need to connect all the points. Here I tried to draw a line to connect these 2 points and it missed the other 2 points. This is not linear data. It's not at least perfectly linear data. So for part B, I'm going to say it's not linear. And part C, it says if the function is linear, find an equation for a line. Oh, it says use function notation. I should put that back on the last screen. Here, I can skip this step because the data is not linear. I didn't read my directions as I did part C of the last problem, just to get us used to function notation, because it comes up a lot in our class. Anytime I have a y, I can change a y to an f of x or any function name. So for part C of number 16, if I wasn't paying, if I was paying better attention, I would have read my instructions and it said parenthetically write your answer in function notation. This would be a better answer for part C. If these were test questions, I'd take the y answer just fine. It's function notation and xy notation are interchangeable. One more stat plot just to get us perfected with stat plots. So for number 20, I'm going to do stat plot with my fancy calculator. Hit my stat button, hit enter on edit, and here I don't really need to clear the first list. I can just add to it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And you don't have to clear the list. You could just type over it. So instead of clearing my list 2, I can just type over all the numbers. It doesn't matter. If you're entering a shorter list, I usually delete it cleared. But if I'm entering a longer list, I can just type over it. So however you get the data in, hit the stat button, hit enter. You can go up to the top and clear a list. You can type over, get the data in, and then hit zoom and stat to get a stat plot. And then I look at, it's graphing a line because I have a line in here. I have that line y equals -2 on this, which is fine, but let me just shut that off. Now we'll go back to this. So, done with part A. I'm going to say C calculator. Is the data perfectly linear? If I try to connect any 2 points with a line, the data is perfectly linear if that line goes through every point, and this is linear, perfectly 100% linear, because a line drawn through any of the 2 points goes through all the points. So this is linear, which means I need to do part C and find the equation of the line that connects these points. To find an equation of a line that connects points, I need any 2 points. All these points will work because they're all on the same line. I'm going to find my slope by subtracting the y's in the numerator of the fraction of the points that I picked and the x's in the denominator. And then just in case you like this y equals mx plus b strategy, let me do this like this. I don't like this strategy, but a lot of students do. For this strategy, to find my equation for my line, which is the alternate strategy, I'm going to let x equal 1, y equal to 30, and m equal to negative 10 in the y equals mx plus b equation, which will give me an answer for b, and then I'll have to get my line in a second here. So I'll go 30 equals negative 10 times 1 plus b. This gives me 30 equals negative 10 plus b, add 10 to both sides, gives me 40 equals b. So my equation is supposed to be in the form y equals mx plus b. The m is negative 10 and the b is 40. Function notation version of this would be f of x equals negative 10x plus 40. That's a completely fine way to find the equation. The alternate would have been to do this. Do y minus 30 equals to m, which is negative 10, times x minus 1. This will give me y minus 30 equals negative 10x plus 10. Add 30 to both sides. That gives me y equals negative 10x plus 40. Change it to function notation just because it asks for function notation. Both ways will work the same. Done with stat plotting. Let's get these stat plots turned off or they're going to destroy your ability to graph. So back to get these stat plots off, hit my y equals button, cursor up so that stat plot is blinking, and hit enter. So my cursor is blinking on the stat plot. My cursor is blinking on the stat plot and I hit enter and arrow off of it. Now it's not on anymore. See, the left one's off because it's not blacked out. The right one's on because it is blacked out. Go up to the stat plot, hit my enter key. It'll box it out. Just for the heck of it, let me hit my zoom and standard button to get my window to be more appropriate for most problems. So now my calculator is just ready to do regular math again. Oh, right. I kind of feel like this might be a good place to break and go to a part 3. Even though we're on 18 minutes, the next concepts are different and they'll fit better. They'll probably be a half hour. It might be better to do them all in one video. So let me pause.